My name is Upatissa. We live in extremely fortunate times to be born human beings and to have direct access to the teachings of the Buddha. Today, 26 centuries after the demise of Lord Buddha and his chief disciples, a small number of bhikkhus still aspire to practice the Eightfold Noble Path, having abandoned the material world. Bhante Candana is one of them, but his noble endeavors are unsustainable without our support. So, if you feel inspired by Bhante's teachings, please consider a timely donation from the right places goes a long way to prolong the Buddha's dispensation. May the blessings of the Triple Gems be with you. Sukhi Hotu.
There is no period, but plenty of commas. Maybe dashes, hyphens here and there, but mostly commas. This in reference to death, in reference to, well, this is it, this is my life, so I have to do something. If I don't, then that'll be it. Human beings have been destroying each other, trying to eliminate one another for forever, in both documented and non-documented history, things that we are privy to, aware of in history books, and those that are not. To have the conviction, not just a notion, but the conviction to think that there is death where one is no more, gone, eliminated, either oneself or doing it to someone else, getting rid of them, in a sense, is just nonsense. It's insanity, in fact, what we're seeing in the world today. These wars, these efforts at eliminating each other. Because you look different, because your last name is different, because your creed is different, because my ancestry is different. It's a joke. Especially when you think about Arabs and Jews. Their ancestors are the same, meaning Abraham. They're brothers, you know. They are brothers. Whether they want to openly accept it or not. You look at them, there's no difference. They're people. You see it all over. Yesterday it was some other culture coming after you. Tomorrow it will be somebody else. You will be in another form, by the way. Hence the karma part comes in. When people try to kill each other, or kill each other, it doesn't end there. This is what many people don't seem to get. don't seem to understand. Someone had sent out something the other day, a clip, a video, where I saw a group of people. There's no point in actually naming them, even though they're always on the news. This group of people holding their flags, banners, their attire, the way they wear their hair, this, that, their customs, their all that. So it's a crowd. So the crowd is never going to be producing anyone who is sane. You will not find a wise person coming out of the crowd, nor the crowd turning wise. There's no way. So you have this screaming, barraging insults. This body of people yelling, cursing, swearing at whom? The people standing on the opposite, and the military is standing in between. And the military is supporting this screaming side, obviously. Now the others who are standing on this side, they are throwing insults at the other ones. Both are extremely angry. Both are extremely mad. Not just mad at each other, but just mad. Crazy. Now, as I saw this, immediately the question arose. Where will either of these people, groups of people, be in 75 years' time? Let's just stay put for 75 years, either put a camera there, and fast forward 75 years. How many of those people will actually be alive? Perhaps none, maybe one or two. They will all be gone under the ground, buried. Where will the anger go, though? The energy, the intense energy. And by the way, most of the yellers, the screamers, were younger children, teenagers. So much hatred in their eyes. So much madness. For what? For this land which has been there before you and will be there after you. This world, this planet will be here long after we're gone. But you won't remember it when you show up in a different shape and form. And what if, chances are, what if you switch sides the next time you come around? Remember the comma? There's no period. This is terrifying for anybody who staunchly holds on to this sense of identity, that I am a Jew, that I'm an Arab, that I am an Armenian, that I'm a, I don't know, a Russian, I'm a somebody who is supposed to defend oneself against you, who is my enemy. When? The word or the question, when, can be life-giving. When you just posit that question, when? I'm angry at you now. Yes, that's a when. But is this going to stay like that? No. Why? Because there's my karma coming around. Sooner or later, one of us is going to die. But I guarantee it, both of us will die. So I wanted to, if I were there, I wanted to just go ahead and ask in that clip that I mentioned, to go and ask each of these groups, do you know if both of you are going to die? Do you know that? And when they calm down, when they get a glass of water, cool off, breathe for a change, get away and just be secluded by oneself, because it's very difficult for you to be mad at someone when you're by yourself with that person who you're supposed to be mad at, alone. When you look around left and right over your shoulder trying to find your group, your crowd, to kind of cheer you on, to fan the flames of hatred. It's really hard when you're sitting with someone else who belongs to that race, which is a stupid idea, by the way. Race, what is that? Because when you have these designations, you're opening the door for separatism. You're opening the door for apartheid, for double standards. You're opening the door for being judgmental towards someone else, irrespective of what comes out of their mouth, irrespective of who they might be as individuals. No, why? Because you've already put them in a package. And that's where the parents, the culture comes in. So these people yelling at each other, throwing rocks and bombs and everything else, killing each other for generations, hating. Not just, this is not just about Arabs and Jews. The two brothers, Isaac and Ishmael, okay? They were both the sons of Abraham, that's where their ancestry, that's the Semite, if you want to call it race, that's where it comes from. I laugh when people say, oh, this person is I think he's an anti-Semite or something, anti-Semitic. And I always am curious as to who are they referring to. And I always check to see if this person has a similar position. Let's say, usually it's towards, let's say, anyone who belongs to Jewish faith. Let's say, it's usually within that. But that's not correct. Before Isaac, there was Ishmael, their older brother, whom the Arabs point at as their ancestor, as their forefather, which makes them also anti-Semite. Semite. So if anyone is anti-Semite, they are definitely then against both the Jews and the Arabs. So if a Jew is saying something horrific about Arabs, they themselves are anti-Semite immediately. If an Arab is doing the same thing, hating a Jew, guess what? They are being an anti-Semite. So there goes that argument that they've been tooting that horn forever. I'm surprised that nobody with the right brains is showing up, and it's so simple. Even a kid, a teenager, if you give them the history background, they would know. Like, what are they arguing about? They're pointing the fingers, but they're brothers. But this goes beyond just Arabs and Jews, of course. Hatred. Anyone who has power, anyone who has been in a position of authority to rule over a group of others, Because of the presence of lust, greed, hatred, and anger, and above all, ignorance in their hearts, the worst is going to come out in them. Why? Because now they have the affluence, they have the influence, they have the means. It's the fanning part, fanning the flames. The heart is already burning with these three poisons. Lord Buddha says, the three poisons in the heart. So it does not matter the color of one's skin, where, which race, which country, which culture, what language, whatever, etc., they come from and use or call one's own. Nobody is born better than another. Nobody. A Jew is not better than anybody else. An Arab is not better than anybody else. An Armenian is not better than anybody else. An Englishman is not better than anybody else. An Aborigine, Australian Aborigine, is not better than anybody else. A Turk is not better than anybody else. Who else? A Greek is not better than anybody else. A Frenchman, did I say, is not better than anybody else. Why? Because these titles mean nothing. Because in this life, this person happened to be a Greek, happened to be an Arab, happened to be an Indian. Nobody by birth becomes automatically better than anyone else. In ancient India, they had, to this day, it still exists, by the way, the caste system, even though they don't like to say it out loud, but it's very, very present. Not just within India, but everywhere else. This is not an Indian sickness, this is a worldwide sickness of thinking that I am better than you. So at the time of the Buddha, this existed, and in the form of the title of being a Brahmin, usually. The Brahmin would be the highest, the echelon of society, because they were the ones who knew, who came up with, in fact, and they kept it a secret, the chanting of the mantras. And if the king wanted to be getting a better crop this year, this season, win over his enemies, make sure there's enough rain, so he had to make sure that the prayers were being chanted properly at the right time, in the right sequence. By whom? The Brahmins. Well, who made the rules? The Brahmins. Interesting. So, this was the thing in India. So many, many, many encounters you see in the suttas where Brahmins show up, with the self-entitlement, sense of self-entitlement, that we are Brahmin by birth, and what that means is usually 7 generations. This is something you also have in different cultures. You have this, I think, in Greek culture, I think, in Jewish culture, and again, this is like the extremes I'm talking about. I've met wonderful people in all of these cultures I've mentioned in my travels. I met the colorful ones, the ones that are extremes as well. People who don't, who people don't have any tolerance. They will spit at you. I've had those encounters where people have spat at me as they're walking, as I'm walking. I mentioned the incident with some North African refugees, Arabs in the middle of Milan, who have done that to me while I was walking, minding my own business as a bhikkhu, quietly walking away, just walking, with a person who was helping me with my groceries. Somebody spat at me. while being refugees in a foreign country. Why? Because they think they're better. So Brahmins would show up and in front of Lord Buddha, asking him, tempting him, well, not tempting him, but trying to drag him into a debate as to what is a Brahmin. And Lord Buddha had a wonderful way of representing what a Brahmin is. A true Brahmin. Brahmin, the word actually means a noble person. So here they were coming from a position that automatically they're born noble. That's why I scoff, I laugh at people from, from royal families, or, oh, I'm a prince of this, or I'm a this, or I'm a king, I'm a your holiness, or your highness, or something. What highness of what? Who placed you at that height? Okay? All this nonsense. This is idiotic, antiquated, stupid traditions. True nobility comes from actions, Lord Buddha would say to these people. Not just any action, but intentional action. Has nothing to do with your birth, ever. Has nothing to do with the fact that you show up from this race. You're a member of this culture. Who cares? Ultimately, it's your behavior that matters. How do you treat me? Well, that person over there, that refugee in Milan, in Italy, had an opportunity to smile. Because I was smiling at everyone. Gently, you smile and you're trying to exude metta, loving kindness everywhere you go, no matter where. So there's this delusion that people have that a period, not just at the end of life, but also at the beginning of life, We don't talk about the invisible period at the beginning of a sentence. The beginning of a sentence indicates the ending of another sentence. Hence, you start with a capital letter, usually, right? In Western languages, at least. So, I am caught between these 2 points, which I will call my life. And I need to look for justifying things to what? To justify what? Remember those 3 poisons I mentioned in your heart? Lust, greed, hatred, anger, delusion, ignorance. These are the problem, not the person sitting across from me. Not the Jew, not the Arab, not the Turk. No. Lord Buddha also would say, the only inheritance you have is your kamma, is your intentionally acted upon behavior, meaning your action, your intentional action is the only inheritance you have. So I bleed when I watch these individuals vowing to kill each other, to eliminate each other, to wipe each other out. I bleed in my heart, seeing the delusion, the ignorance, not to see that in their past lives they were the person that they're hating, perhaps. Excuse me. But now, because of the indoctrination, well, you go to this church, or you go to this temple, or you go to this synagogue, or you go to this mosque, or you go to this whatever, what you're hearing, constantly being jammed inside your ears, polluting the minds of the children, polluting, giving them the sense of identity. What identity? How long will this identity last? Remember that comma again at the end of your life? A comma indicates a continuation of a sentence, you know. So your life is a series of limitless lives with countless, 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 innumerable commas. But within that duration, from comma to comma, you have been a Greek, you have been a dinosaur, you have been literally a dinosaur, you have been a dog, a flea on a dog. But the thing which has somehow been so seductively intriguing for you to hold on to grab onto, is this delusion of identity, which does not exist, never existed. What is your identity? Your hair that keeps growing, that changes, that falls eventually? Your eyes that change color from the moment of birth and change in their ability to focus and to see clearly. Your nose that changes, it starts drooping, you know. The tip of your nose starts drooping in time, grows. Your skin, your identity with your skin, or the wrinkles on it. Which wrinkle? I used to joke with students some time ago where I would say, there was a time when, as a layman, I started to name each new wrinkle that I would spot on my face, around my eyes. What is there to identify? My job. Okay, what if somebody comes and fires you? Oh, my relationship. What happens when you get dumped? Or your spouse dies? Or they cheat on you? Or you die? Or you cheat on them? Etc., etc. Where is the identification part for you to latch onto, like an octopus with your tentacles? What is it? What is there to grab onto? That's why these people who hate, they need to constantly be surrounded by similar loud-speaking voices, individuals. They need to go and revamp. They need to go to, whether it's the church, the mosque, the temple, the synagogue, somewhere under a tree, the things they watch. They need to reignite, fan the flames of hatred to justify their anger. American soldiers in Vietnam, they were, in many cases, doing some horrific things. But when these people would come to their senses eventually, they realized what they had done, the raping, the killing, the burning alive of villages, destroying these people, whom they didn't know. A few years earlier, they were fined, good high school kids, they were fined, these people, in somewhere in the, I don't know where, in America, in the US. And then they're in a uniform with a gun and they're being told to go and kill, 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 kill. I met some veterans from Vietnam War. One of them mentioned that. That's why I can say that. They get there and they're being pushed into this group of other men from other parts of the US, and a few days ago they were in the US, in their own home, in their own neighborhoods. Now they're being shouted at to scream, kill, kill, kill. What does that do to a human being? That human being is going to go ahead and do just that, because they're going to look at each other obeying. Remember the crowd? No wise person is going to come out of the crowd. That's what's happening in the world. What has been happening for eons. So, in this case, one should be unafraid to be an individual, to stand up and say, what is this? I can see a pattern here. Everybody's biting the bait. They're buying these news stories. Nobody's watching to see, okay, is there a pattern here? Did something like this happen in recent history? How often? Okay, let's open the pages of history and let's look at it. Boom, 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 boom. You see it all around. Meanwhile, people are losing their lives. They're killing other people. Unfortunately, without realizing that, that doesn't end anything. It's just a series of karmas. You will not stay the way you are in this strong position that you might be enjoying now. Similarly, somebody who is on the receiving end of that, hatred, anger, power. I shake my head when I see these powerful individuals, powerful as in those who have military might, wealth, and the whole world backing them up, and the mainstream media is always tooting their horn. I just shake my head and say, oh boy, you don't know what you're doing. This is the time when you're alive to really earn a good inheritance through your actions. So how I treat you now, when I have wealth, when I have money, when I have power, military might, I control your life. I can give you or take away your life, basically. When I'm in that position, what is the nature of my actions? This is what hurts me, when people don't see what they're doing. Well, I'm going to get away with it. No, you're not. That's the sad part. You're not going to get away with anything. You're going to burn in hell, literally. Burning is only one aspect of it. Despite what your religious tradition tells you, that you're going to go and sit next to God or something, none of that is going to happen. If you kill someone, if you harm someone, there's no way, ever, that you close your eyes at the moment of death and you somehow end up in heaven. It's impossible. I don't care what your sacred so-called books tell you, that if you kill this person, you're going to go straight to paradise. No, as they say, siree Bob. That ain't going to happen. It's as ridiculous as, I'm going to give you a grotesque image, because some people respond to grotesque images, apparently. If you go into the bathroom and having not gone to the bathroom for 3, 4, 5 days straight, and suddenly you have a whole bout of diarrhea, and it all comes out, okay? And you finally feel so relieved, and you walk out of the bathroom, and someone walks in there immediately, because they have to go now. By the way, there was no air freshener or anything like that. Just the natural odors that came out of your body. All the nitrogen-infused air that you left inside the bathroom is there to greet them. When they walk in, are they going to smell gardenias? Just to give you an example. Action, reaction. What you do bears a consequence. Unfortunately, it's not going to be somebody else walking into the bathroom to deal with what was left behind. And that is what will greet you post that karma. Nobody else. Nobody else is responsible for my karma, for my intentionally committed actions. If I harm you, if I kill you, I am responsible for that. Despite what my leaders, what my religious leaders, what the crazy loonies around me keep telling me. Yes, yes, this is a sacred war. Yes, yes, you have to, this is your right. This is for your people. All that nonsense. Ultimately, I am responsible for what I have done with my life, with these hands. So no one's getting off the hook. And similarly, when you do something wonderful, when you see atrocities being committed and you being, let's say, a member or part of that population, let's say, because of your race, your belief, your creed, whatever, you're in a position where you can do something positive. And you don't miss that opportunity, and you reach out and you help that little girl. You help that family. You give them water. You protect them. You throw yourself in front of them. When someone is menacing, threatening their lives, that's a life worthwhile. Because that would be going against those three poisons I mentioned in one's heart. So nobody's born noble. It's your actions that make you noble, and there are no periods. The only period, as far as we know in Buddhism, is to become free from those three poisons. And absolutely, that is why we're here. We're not here to throw rocks and rockets at each other. No. We're not here to even defend a country against someone. What country? Go and speak to an American Indian. By the way, many Native Americans don't like to be called Native American because that's an insult to them. Side note. Go and speak to the Aboriginals in Australia. How many of them are left? I was there 3 times in this past 7-8 years. You know how many Australian Aboriginals I saw? 1. And he was sitting there, right there, close to the Sydney Opera House, selling his traditional didgeridoos and boomerangs and other. He was there to make money from all these tourists. What country are we talking about? Nothing belongs to us except for our actions. Not even your parents belong to you. You know that? Both my mom and dad are dead, gone. Where are they? They're gone. No, I'm not alone, you know. Where's my past? Your past doesn't even belong to you. It's gone. Neither does your future. So the only thing that you have some control over is what you do intentionally now, which will affect you post-karma in the future. And now, that's the beauty of it. If you do something that is wholesome, if you speak sane words, if you speak wise words, and you live your life with virtue in this totally unvirtuous, immoral world of ours, then you are establishing a new precedent. You are changing the direction of where we're headed. We are headed to the edge, and the abyss is there. So I hope this reaches certain hearts that are willing to listen.